Men and women are different. I hope that's not a revolutionary idea to you. I hope that's something that we all pretty well accept and embrace. Men and women, they aren't almost the same. In case you were wondering, not almost. They're not just a little bit different. And the more I get to know more men and the more I get to know more women, I realize that the expanse is great sometimes. And you can't just decide you want to be the opposite, and it's so. I know our society is a little confused about that sometimes today, but there are differences there for a reason. Genesis chapter 5, verses 1 and 2, it says, "This is the written account of Adam's line. When God created man, He made him in the likeness of God. He created them male and female, and He blessed them." So there's a difference. And there's a difference for a reason. Now, I don't want to go off on a tangent here today, but we have male and female for a very important reason. And you know where I'm going with this today, being Mother's Day. But the procreation factor aside, God created us different for His glory. He created us different for specific reasons to enhance and to strengthen and to make different the body of Christ. And He did that on purpose. And when I look at my wife, I am amazed at the traits that God gave her that are completely foreign to me. I mean, like foreign to where I just don't get it. I mean, like foreign to sometimes they frustrate me because they make no sense. That God blessed her with these traits, and they're totally different from exactly what I have. You know, not to generalize too much, but these traits that I see in her, I see in most women, a lot of women, and these differences I see God doing on purpose. Last week, we had 4 of the grandkids over at the house at the same time. Keith and Aaron all responsible for that passel of kids. And so they're over at the house, and there was a lot of chaos. And there were a lot of needs all at one time. And so Mindy is handling all these needs and taking care of all these things, and it just, I mean, it honestly kind of brought me to tears. And I stopped for a minute after the initial chaos was behind us. And everybody was happy. And this one had a blanket, and this one had a toy, and this one had some food, and this one had some food, and everybody was happy. I just paused for a minute, and I told her, I am getting a glimpse right now into what your life was like for many years. And here's the thing, the younger version of me didn't always notice or didn't always appreciate the constant chaos that was her life. Now, many of you can relate to that, and you understand what it's like to have all that stuff going on at times. But if you will indulge me this morning for a bit of generalization, I want to point out some of these traits that I see women and mothers having. Of course, this may not be true for all women. It may not be true for all mothers, but in general, I want you to know that it's not accidental that ladies possess these traits. That God did this for a very, very important reason, designed by Him from the beginning. I'm going to point out today that God created women with these traits, not just for being mothers, but also for building up the body of Christ. Because we need this stuff in our congregations. We need it in our communities. We need it in our families. We need these abilities and these traits to make the world go round. So here they are. In 1 Thessalonians chapter 2, verses 6 through 7, it's just a descriptor here that's used. Not a command, but just a descriptor. And he says, as apostles of Christ, we could have been a burden to you, but yet we were gentle among you, like a mother caring for her little children. like a mother caring for her little children, gentle among you. Now, I've seen gentleness. I've also seen some not so gentleness when, you've had it up to here. But gentleness. In general, don't you see gentleness with a mother caring for her children? And I think that's what he's getting at here. Mothers, most always, they're gentle, they're nurturing. This is the trait that I want to tell you out. Not so much the gentle, but the nurturing. Women naturally are nurturers. One thing I found out about women is they usually remember that they have kids. Now, let me tell you about that a little bit. Guys, have you ever had your wife come up to you and say, "Hey, can you watch the kids for a minute while I do whatever?" And she'll go do whatever. And I will forget that I have children. Just for maybe a short time, but I'll forget. And one of them may be in the next county, and she'll come back and say, "Didn't I ask you to watch the kids?" And I said, "Well, I was kind of watching them. And 3 out of 4 is not bad, that they're okay." So women are nurturing a lot. And they remember that they've got this responsibility and that responsibility, and they care for their kids, and they take care of them. It's within most women's DNA to be nurturing and to be caring. And that's a trait that we need. And Baron, maybe it's not just childbirth. Maybe it's that if we had to watch them all the time, they would die and we would go extinct. It's certainly possible there too. But there's another trait too that I see that's really important, and that's empathy. It's really, really important. It refers generally to our ability to take the perspective of someone else and to feel the emotions of someone else. And Mindy's much better at this than I am, this empathy thing. Now I realize personalities play into these traits, besides just being male and female, but I find generally that women are more empathetic than men. Someone will be going through a rough time that we know, maybe it's somebody here at church or maybe a friend someplace, and they're going through a rough time, and she will put herself in their shoes. That's empathy, and see that. And I will say, if they would quit making stupid choices, then they wouldn't be where they are. Totally different. And the empathy is needed there. And she has that in abundance. And I see most women have that in abundance also, that they are empathetic, and they're capable of putting themselves in someone else's shoes. They look for reasons why something might be happening, and are understanding in that regard. But along with empathy, usually comes compassion. So empathy is to feel, like to try to identify with where someone is, but compassion literally means to suffer together. That's what compassion means, to suffer together. And among emotional researchers, it's defined as the feeling that arises when you are confronted with another's suffering and feel motivated to relieve that suffering. So not only do you see it and kind of identify with it, but you feel it. And not only do you feel it, but you want to do something about it to make it better. To make it better. Women are better at that than men. They just tend to be more compassionate. They tend to be more compassionate. When you talk about benevolence in blessing people and giving things to people, Mindy is the most generous person, and give, and I think everybody's up to something. Just the way I am. And we're a great balance. And maybe it's that way in your relationship as well, but women tend to be better at this, being empathetic and having compassion than what men are. Who do kids usually run to when they're hurt? It's usually mom. The one with the most compassion. The one best at relieving the hurt. Rubbing alcohol on a scrape and telling you you'll be okay is not, it doesn't endear you to your children. And I'll tell you how I know that later. But women, they help, they are empathetic and sympathetic, and they relieve the hurt, and that usually is mom. Like it or not, disagree with me or not, if you look at stats, women usually possess a deeper capacity for the emotional than guys do. It's just reality. It's the way God created us. Guys, that doesn't mean you should say to your wife, "You're being emotional." Don't do that. Don't do that. And again, there's a lot of things I've learned from experience through the years. But women usually possess a greater capacity for emotion than men do. Don't tell them about it, because they also possess a great capacity for violence. But we want to understand that God makes us exactly the way we are for a very important reason, so that we can plug in all the holes in His kingdom and do what He's called us to do. I read in a marriage book a long time ago something that made a lot of sense to me, and I find it to be very true from experience and also just from doing counseling with people down through the years. That he said that men think first and then base their emotions off of their thoughts, and women feel first and base their thoughts off of those feelings. And neither one of those is right or wrong. It's just the way that we are wired as people. And I think you need both in a relationship. You need both to formulate thoughts or formulate emotions from thoughts and formulate thoughts from emotions. And I really agree with that as far as a generality, because I think it's where women's intuition comes from. That they feel first, and then they formulate thoughts, and they're able to see things that a lot of times us guys can't see. And I'm so grateful to have a wife that possesses these traits that sometimes I can't even relate to. When I endeavor to protect her physically and spiritually and emotionally, she keeps me from wandering into landmines all the time. Don't do that. Don't say that. Be careful here. Be careful there. So important. The deeper capacity for emotions is so needed in the church, where there are people who are hurting, who are having a rough time, that often me in my put my head down and charge ahead kind of mentality, I don't even see. And so ladies, your role to intuit these things is needed desperately, to pick up on these nuances that sometimes we as guys can't even pick up on. So I want to leave you with a challenge for putting these traits that you as mothers possess into practice. Now, with men, Father's Day, I can get up here and pound on the pulpit and tell you guys what all improvements you need to make as being dads, and you're doing this wrong, you're doing this wrong, you're doing that wrong. And I don't know that I could quite get by with that on Mother's Day with mothers. Not really even going to try that. But I do want to give you a little encouragement to put some of these traits that you have been given from God into practice in the church. I want to clear up some things in case I've ever not been clear